Hello everyone, welcome to our online English class. Today we are going to finish Unit 5, so that means we're going to go over lessons E and F.
Yeah, that's right, Silas.
But first we are going to go over the homework that I gave you last time, so let's take a look at that.
Okay everyone, so let's go ahead and go over the homework on page 148 and 149. Some of you emailed your homework to me and I was able to read them and you did very well. So thank you for doing that. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me through email or in the WhatsApp chat. And I'm not going to make corrections on small errors, small mistakes, but I might make some suggestions or correct some things that I think you would benefit from. So thank you again, and let's go ahead and move on. So under exercise number 1, check your understanding. Number 1, look at the reading tip again. Restate the proverb in your own words. So the proverb says, "Give a man a fish, and you have fed him for today. Teach a man to fish, and you have fed him for a lifetime." So you might say, if you just give someone something that they need, then it only lasts for the moment. But if you teach someone a method or a way or provide them with tools to continue, then they can meet their own needs beyond just the moment, beyond just today. And then number 2, explain the saying, passing on the gift, in your own words. So you might say, if you give someone something that they need or show someone kindness, not to get paid in return, but just to give out of love, then that might motivate them or inspire them to continue giving to others. You might have heard another similar phrase called pay it forward. Pay it forward. That's the same thing as passing on the gift. Paying it forward. Okay, and then number 3, what gave Dan West the idea to start Heifer International? So if you look in the second paragraph, you can see that West realized that it was good to give people food, but it was more important to help them find a way to produce or create their own food. So this is actually another way to answer number 1, or another way to restate the proverb. Number 4, how did Christine survive after her husband died in the war? She applied to Heifer International and received a cow. She used some of the milk to feed her family and sold the rest. And then number 5, how does Christine's story illustrate the way Heifer International can change the lives of more than one person in a community? So if you look at Christine's story toward the end of the article, you'll see that the heifer provided not just for their immediate needs, but her family was able to provide for others with what they received from the heifer. And so in this way, one gift can benefit an entire community. Okay, and then exercise 3, talk with a partner. So it says, answer each question with evidence from the reading. Use one of the phrases in the useful language box. So if you look at the useful language box, it shows you how to cite evidence with certain phrases like, according to the author, or the author states that. So these phrases can also be placed at the end of the sentence as well. So you can start with, according to the author, or you can end with, according to the author. And same with, the author states that. So number 1, what can a heifer provide a family? So you might say, according to the author, or the author states that a heifer can provide a family with milk, fertilizer, and calves. And then number 2, what other gifts does Heifer International give needy people? So you can say, Heifer International gives gifts of sheep, goats, and many other animals, according to the author. And then number 3, what are 2 examples from the reading of passing on the gift? So if you look at Christine's story, you can see several examples of how the gift of a heifer was able to benefit the community around her. So you might say, the author states that Christine was able to buy a small house for her parents, and she gave her cow's first calf to a neighbor as a gift. You might also include, she also adopted and took care of 4 orphans. So any of those examples are fine.
Okay, so let's take a look at the picture. Who are the people in the picture? And where are they? What are they doing? So take some time to make some sentences out loud, or again, you can practice with your family members. Okay, so we might say there's a woman and children, and maybe she's a teacher, maybe she's a volunteer. It looks like they are in a classroom, some kind of room. We might say the woman is reading a book to them and they are smiling, they are enjoying it. Okay? And number 2, do you think the young woman is doing something important? Why or why not? So, yeah, we can say, yes, I think she's doing something important because she is helping children, or she is making a difference in the children's lives. Okay, so now let's read the paragraph. So I'm going to read it and you can follow along. Story lady. My friend Vivienne is one of the most compassionate people I have ever met. After college, she wanted to do something truly worthwhile, so she spent a year working as a literacy volunteer in northeastern Brazil. At the time, this area didn't have any libraries, so Vivienne traveled to different schools in a mobile library van. As soon as she arrived at a school, the children would run outside and shout, "Story lady, story lady." Then everyone went inside, sat down, and listened quietly while she read them a story. Vivienne made a huge difference in these children's lives. She introduced them to literature and taught them to love reading. Today, she still gets letters from children who remember her generosity and kindness. Okay, now if you want, you can pause the video and you can practice reading it also, but that's up to you. So we're going to move on to page 67, exercise C. Write the words who, what, where, when, why, or how next to the details from the paragraph. As you know, I always have you practice making questions. So this is really good to help you identify what the question is asking. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Number 1, who? Now we know that that is talking about a person. So who is the person that the story is about? So you might even ask, who is the story about? Or who made a difference in this story? So of course you can see the answer is my friend Vivienne. Okay, and if you look at exercise D, you'll see a chart that includes some of the questions, the full questions. So let's look at them together. Who made a difference? What did he or she do? Where did it happen? When did it happen? And why did this person do it? Okay, so these are very simplified questions, but you can make the question more detailed. So for example, let's go back to exercise C, number 2. The answer is after college. So what is the question word? Okay, when, we would use when. So we could say, when did she do it? But if you want to add more detail, you could say, when did she work as a literacy volunteer? So I want you to take some time to complete numbers 3 through 8 and use, of course, the correct question word, but make a complete question. Okay, so number 3, we might ask, what did she do? Or what did she volunteer as? Or what did she work as? Okay, and then number 4, we could say, where did she go? Or where did she work? Or where did she volunteer? Number 5, why did she do this? Number 6, how did she travel? Or how did she get around? Or how did she accomplish this? Number 7, what did she do as a literacy volunteer? And number 8, you could ask, how did she make a difference? Or what happened as a result? Or what happened as a result of her volunteer efforts? So now I want you to go to your workbook on page 62, workbook page 62. Lesson E, writing. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and read the paragraph and answer the questions. Okay, so let's read the story together. Tony is one of the kindest people I know. He has always loved music and singing. When he was 16, his grandfather had to move to a nursing home. Tony's grandfather felt bored there, and Tony went to visit him as often as possible. One day, Tony brought his guitar with him to the nursing home and played some old songs for his grandfather. Some of the other residents came to listen, and they all had big smiles on their faces. Tony wanted to do something for the residents in the nursing home. Every Saturday while he was in high school, Tony went to the nursing home to play his guitar. He taught the residents songs so that they could all sing together. Tony made a great difference in the lives of these elderly people. He made their days happier with his music. Now he goes to college in another city, but he still volunteers at nursing homes. He wants to become a social worker for elderly people. Okay, so let's take a look at number 1. Who made a difference? Okay, and of course the answer, as you can see, is Tony made a difference. Number 2, what did he do? So there are probably a lot of different answers you wrote, but we could say he played his guitar for residents in a nursing home. Number 3, why did he do it? So we might say he wanted to do something for them, or he saw that they had big smiles on their faces, or his grandfather was bored. So that's the first reason he went there. Okay, and then number 4, where did he do it? At a nursing home, or he did it at a nursing home. Number 5, when did he do it? He did it every Saturday while he was in high school. And then number 6, how did he make a difference? He made the residents' days happier with his music. Okay, so let's keep going. Page 63, exercise 2. Look at the diagram. Complete the chart. Okay, so we can see that this is a web diagram that shows details about Susanna. Okay, so let's take a look at the list of questions about Susanna. For this one, we can work together. I will pause after each question and you can just write the short answer or just some notes. And after that, we'll write a paragraph. Okay, so number 1, who made a difference? The answer is Susanna. Number 2, what did she do with the children? Okay, so now I want you to open your student's book to page 66. Student's book, page 66. Okay, so you could say just art projects. All right, and then number 3, when did she do it? All right, so we can say when she was in college. Number 4, where did she do it? In homeless shelters. And number 5, why did she do it? Okay, she did it because she loves art and children. So you can write loves art and children. And then number 6, how did she make a difference? So you can write helped the children have fun and forget about their problems. And finally, number 7, what does she do now? Okay, you can put works as a teacher. All right, so I want you to use the information that you just wrote down and look at exercise 3. It says, write a paragraph about Susanna. Use your chart from exercise 2 to help you. So you can also take a look at the story about Tony on page 62, and you can use that to help you with the order of the sentences. Okay, so your paragraph might look a little different, but that's okay. But you might say something like, Susanna has made a difference in the lives of many children. She has always loved art and children. When she was in college, she volunteered in homeless shelters. She did art projects with them, or she did art projects with the children there, such as drawing and painting. She helped them have fun and forget about their problems. Now, she works as a teacher in another city, but she still has the children's drawings on her classroom walls. Okay, so now I want you to open your student's book to page 68, lesson F. Okay, so let's take a look at the advertisement for volunteers. So this looks like a web page that is requesting volunteers. So it says, want to get involved? Volunteer opportunities are listed every Wednesday. So let's take a look at the first volunteer opportunity. It looks like it's in the health field, and the agency is San Antonio Meals for Seniors. And the need is for volunteers to drive meals to seniors' homes. And the location is in the downtown area, and the time commitment is 3 hours per week. Okay, number 2, literacy. The agency is San Antonio Literacy Foundation, and the need is for volunteers to tutor basic reading, writing, and math skills to adults. And the location is around the city, and the time commitment is 4 hours per week, 3-month commitment, and 12 hours of training. Okay, and then number 3, animals. The agency is Make People Smile Animal Therapy. And the need is for volunteers and their pets to visit hospitals and nursing homes. The locations are throughout the city, and the time commitment is 4 hours per month. Okay, so I want you to look at the questions and fill in the correct answers, but I also want you to make a sentence as well. All right, so number 1, which volunteer position requires the biggest time commitment? Okay, so we can say the second volunteer position requires the biggest time commitment. Or we can just name the position. We can say literacy requires the biggest time commitment. Okay, number 2, which position requires a driver's license? Okay, so we can say the first position, or we can say the health position requires a driver's license. Okay. Or you can even say the Meals for Seniors position requires a driver's license. And then number 3, which word could replace tutor in the literacy opportunity? And we can say teach could replace tutor in the literacy opportunity. Okay, number 4, which statement is true? And the answer is letter B. San Antonio Literacy Foundation requires more training than the other places. Okay, now if you go back to questions 1 and 2, you can see that the structure is active voice. So which volunteer position requires, and then so on. But if you remember when we learned about the passive voice, so if you go back to page 22, you'll see lesson C, the passive voice. So particularly, this lesson focused on infinitives after the passive. So if you remember, the infinitive is to plus the base form or root form or original form of the verb. So if you look at the examples, you can see students are told to arrive early on the first day of class. So are told is the passive, and to arrive is the infinitive. So let's go back to page 68, and if we ask a follow-up question to number 1, we might say, how much time are volunteers required to commit to for the literacy position? How much time or how many hours are volunteers required to commit to for the literacy foundation or for the literacy position? Go ahead and answer the question using the passive voice. Okay, so we might say volunteers are required to commit 4 hours per week for 3 months plus 12 hours of training. Okay, so volunteers are required to commit 4 hours per week for 3 months plus and 12 hours of training. Okay, so let me ask you a few more questions and I want you to write down the answer, or you can just practice verbally. Okay, so how much time are volunteers required to commit to for the health position? How much time are volunteers required to commit to for the health position or the Meals for Seniors position? Okay, so you can say volunteers are required to commit to 3 hours per week. Volunteers are required to commit to 3 hours per week for the health position. Okay, and the third position, the same thing. How much time are volunteers required to commit to for the animals position? Okay, or for the animal therapy position? How much time are volunteers required to commit to for the animal therapy position? Okay, so you can say volunteers are required to commit to 4 hours per month for the animal therapy position. Okay, now I want you to look at the need section for each volunteer position and make some sentences also using the passive voice. Okay, so we might say volunteers are needed, okay, and then you can complete the sentence. Okay, so we can say volunteers are needed to drive meals to seniors' homes. Okay, volunteers are needed to drive meals to seniors' homes. So make the same sentence using are needed for the other two positions. Okay, so for the second position, you can say volunteers are needed to tutor basic reading, writing, and math skills to adults. Volunteers are needed to tutor basic reading, writing, and math skills to adults. Okay, and for the third position, you can say volunteers and their pets are needed to visit hospitals and nursing homes. Volunteers and their pets are needed to visit hospitals and nursing homes. Okay, so before we move on to grammar connections on the next page, I want you to open up your workbook on page 64, workbook page 64.